So you're a baker and you own your own shop and you make bread. People love your bread in the local community. And all of a sudden, someone invents a magic bread machine. They come along and they give you one for relatively cheap. You say, sure, I'll try it. All you have to do is throw all of the ingredients in this magic bread machine. You come back a couple hours later, poof, there is a perfect loaf of bread, perfectly reproducible every time with no variation. It sounds great, right? And for a little while, it is. You get to spend more time with your kids. You see, you usually worked pretty late and pretty early as a baker, tending to your bread, doing all of these very tedious operations to get the perfect bread every time by hand. And now the bread machine takes care of it. So you get to spend more time with your kids, more time in leisure, more time with your hobbies until the expectation comes, and it will come, that free time, that is not for you. That is for additional bread making. You see, the inventors of the bread machine now own your business. You owe them royalties when you produce your bread. And they don't just want you busy. They don't just want you working around the clock to do the tedious human labor of feeding ingredients to the bread machine. They want you oppressed. They want you powerless. They want you poor. They want you weak, and they want you rigid. This is exactly the plan that Sam Altman has laid out for you in his dystopian version of the future. Before we get into it, if you're not already subscribed to the email newsletter, it's a once weekly newsletter that details the underlying power law that we talk about each week on this channel. It permeates everything we talk about on the channel. It's the deeper analysis, and it gives you tips that you can take for yourself to foresee layoffs, manage this chaotic job environment, and make sure that you are protected while chaos is happening all around us. This week's theme is touch. As we discussed on Monday's video, it's touch. The Epstein class can touch you. They can touch whoever they want to touch in whatever way they want to touch you. We are not allowed to touch them or even get close to them or even criticize them in some spheres, but they are allowed to touch you. And the latest perversion of this is what Sam Altman has released via his mouthpiece at OpenAI. They are a list just released on Monday of their principles. There are somewhat symbolically 5 principles. It's a nice structural number. And I want to go through each of those and decode each of those principles for you because it's not what it says on the tin. First, some context before we get into those principles. Sam Altman is someone who lies at every turn. You'll know if you've been with this channel for a little while, this started almost exclusively as a channel that was exploring the AI finance bubble. As I kept pulling that thread, I started to realize that the finance was just the numbers on the page that were proving the thesis, that were proving that things were rotten at their core. And as I kept pulling the thread, I came to realize that the real interesting story here wasn't the finances. It's the people behind it. It's the people behind it. It's what they want for people like you and I, and it's the class separation between the Epstein people and normal people like you and I. The Epstein class, these tech oligarchs, elected officials, celebrities, have done everything in their power to speedrun a loss of trust from the American public. We can be assured almost every time that when one of these people says something, they mean the entire opposite, and that they're just hedging against public perception, against what they really mean, so they don't come off as the bad guy. But at this point, it's like a strange stage play where everybody knows that everything is fake, that nobody is telling the truth, and yet we're still going on as if everything is normal. It's quite strange. As brief evidence of this, before we get into the principles, there was a shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner just a couple of days ago, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. I realized I don't care. I realized I don't care. At the dinner table every night, talk about some news. I talk about some news with my wife at the dinner table every night, and I realized I read about it. I saw a couple of videos during the day passively scrolling on X, and we didn't talk about it at all. I assume she saw some videos of it too, or at least knew that it went on. It wasn't even worth talking about at the dinner table, because at this point, how do we even know that it's a real shooting? How do we even know that it's real? How do we know that it's not some false flag operation set up to get us to believe this or do that? Maybe it's real. I have no idea. Nobody has any way of knowing. And that's my hypothesis for why nobody really cared about that shooting. Nobody cared. So when they say something or do something, they almost invariably mean the opposite thing, or it's a hedge against perceptions about what they're going to do, their true plans. So let's go through these 5 principles, and I want to decode these for you. The first principle they have is, and I'll try to get through this without laughing. This is not a joke. This is dead serious. Democratization is their first principle. Okay, democratization is OpenAI's first principle. Let me quote here first. Quote, we will resist the potential of this technology to consolidate power in the hands of the few, unquote. Like Sam Altman's multi-million dollar mansion in the nice area of San Francisco, the area that you and I can't live, like the ability of most of our well-known elites to travel on a private jet to Epstein's island and do God knows what. So let me translate this one for you into what they really want. They don't want democratization. They want you oppressed. They want you oppressed. And they're already doing this to an extent. We're already starting to see this with a number of models, right? Right now, $20 subscription, totally not that big of a deal. You know, even if you're pretty low income, you're shelling out $20 a month for Netflix. You could easily get a Claude subscription or an OpenAI subscription. But you want higher limits, you got to pay $200 a month. And that's just the beginning. We already know that OpenAI is thinking about removing coding from their lower plans, that they're thinking about increasing the price of the $200 plan. All of these prices are going to go up. This is massively subsidized right now. And really just 6 months down the road, you're going to see this wide split to where you are going to have to pay thousands of dollars a month to have access to the real models, the ones that are actually powerful, that you can get things done with. And the plebeians like you and I that don't have an extra $1,000 or a couple $1,000s to throw away every month, we're going to have access to the models that don't really do anything. There's even going to be a tier above this. And I've talked about this endlessly on the channel at this point, that people like Dario Amodei, Sam Altman, people in government are going to have access to, that has all of your personal data. It doesn't have any safety guardrails. It's never going to say that's inappropriate. You can't say that. It's going to tell them whatever they need to know about us, how to manipulate us, how to control us. The translation of this is you will be oppressed. Next up is empowerment. And I'm going to quote again from their principles. We believe AI can empower everyone to achieve their goals, learn more, be happier and more fulfilled, and pursue their dreams. And that society as a whole will benefit from this. Was it your dream to not earn enough to buy a house? Was it your dream to work 80 hours a week? Was it your dream to compete with foreign nationals for jobs that were apportioned for Americans by American companies just 3 to 4 years ago? Think about before ChatGPT came out, and I'm talking like 3.5, the earliest one. You probably didn't even hear about it for a little while. Think back to before AI and think about how you're feeling now. Are you happier? Do you feel happier and closer to your goals? I don't. Maybe I'm the only one, but my sense is that quite a few of you that are subscribed to the channel probably don't feel happier than you did before AI came out. It's not had a positive effect on most people or society at all. Everyone is cramming out junk. YouTube videos are like AI generated scripts that people are reading now. If you even get a real person on the video, any kind of blog is just AI blog spam. Everything is just filled up with AI. It's just spamming everything. It's so hard to make human connection now. It has destroyed society in innumerable ways. And I'm not saying it's not a helpful tool. It is, but this unrestrained use of it is mad, and nobody is happier than they were before AI came out. That is a falsehood. So they don't, the principle they have outlined here is empowerment, but in fact, they want you powerless. Number 3, universal prosperity. Oh, warms the heart to read. We want a future where everyone can have an excellent life. By putting easy-to-use AI systems with a lot of compute power into the hands of everyone, we believe people will find new ways to generate value and massively improve quality of life for everyone, especially with discovery of new science. We want a future where everyone can have an excellent life. From a material sense and a spiritual sense, they are lying. Maybe this is the most flagrant lie out of all 5 of their principles, and let me explain to you why. An excellent life, from the material sense, I think we could concisely define that is whatever standard of living your parents had. Better than that, right? I mean, as a bare minimum starting point for excellent life, we could say whatever my parents had, better than that. That's the American dream, right? I don't even know if that's excellent. That's just the American dream. That's just what everybody wants. That's like your stock vanilla, what your factory settings are when you're loaded out of the gate is I want a little bit better than what my parents had. That's the whole point. That's the whole social contract with this country is that it is supposed to provide me vectors by which I can have a better life than my parents had. If I go outside and talk to real people, like ordinary people, again, not clearly like Sam Altman is only talking to other people in the Epstein class. He's in quite a bubble. And I think everyone at OpenAI is. I mean, if you're an engineer making $500,000 total compensation package there, you're not socializing with plebeians and normies like me or like people watching this channel. We're the forgotten class. We're not part of their club. And so if you go outside and if you talk to real people, I don't know a lot of people right now that are living a prosperous life from a material sense that are, have more than their parents had or are doing well or aren't worrying about bills or anything like that. And I'm not talking low lives. I'm talking, very high value people that work really, really, really hard are skimping by. They're skimping by. Here's the other wild one. So that's the material sense. Material sense, like absolutely they're not delivering on this. That's clear. I've just proved that. From the softer sense, I want to call it the spiritual sense, but maybe the social sense as well. We could bundle that up. It has a little bit less baggage to it. I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'm quite traditional in a lot of my beliefs. And I know that sometimes when presenting situations that use those beliefs as presuppositions into Claude, into OpenAI, it doesn't like them. It's embedded into the model. It doesn't like that I am traditional about some things. It does not like that. It thinks that I should not be traditional. It thinks that you should not be traditional. And you may very well be on the side of the LLM, and that's fine. But if that is baked into the model, if the model is specifically set up, and I'm not saying intentionally, it's emergent, whatever. But if the model is set up to uphold some ways of life as laudable and good, and other ways of life as less desirable, regressive, whatever else you want to call traditionalist mindsets, how will that improve my quality of life? Do I not qualify as being uplifted as part of these principles of universal prosperity? Will I be left on the outside of that? If so, they should really put an asterisk on this section to clear that up, because as I read this, I feel left behind from a social, relationship, and spiritual point of view. Quick translation of point number 3. Remember, it's universal prosperity. The translation of that, they want you poor. They want you poor. They want you materially poor. They want you socially poor. They want you physically poor. They want poverty for you in every sense of the word. The last two, I'm going to give you translations, but these are the most interesting because the internal logic of their whole 5-point system starts to fall apart. You see how much they're scrambling to control public perception of this, to stop Dr. Josh C. Simmons from talking about this, to stop anybody from sticking their head up and saying, wait a second, anyone that still has basic logic skills left that isn't using an LLM 24/7 and hasn't subsidized all of their thinking to it and can still think for themselves as an individual and imperfect human is starting to see that the logic is breaking down here. The control structure is breaking down, and these people are absolutely scrambling to keep a narrative together that is falling apart like sand falling through their fingers. Now, they want you weak, but point number 4 is resilience. I'm going to read a longer section of this one. AI will introduce new risks, and we will work with other companies, ecosystems, governments, and society to solve them. We will make significant use of our foundations research to support this work. No AI lab can ensure a good future alone. For an obvious example, there may be extremely capable models that make it easier to create a new pathogen, and we need a society-wide approach to defend against this with pathogen-agnostic countermeasures. For another example, as the cybersecurity capabilities of models increase, we need to rapidly use these models to help secure open source software and critical infrastructure while training the models to help everyone create more secure software. Resilience. Interesting, because the earlier principles they had were empowerment and democratization. See, to me, empowerment is giving somebody a tool, and oppression is giving somebody a tool but saying, you cannot use it to do this, that, or the other thing because we don't trust you. And where exactly is that line? It becomes very fuzzy between totalitarian control and some rules around a tool. But here in this resilience argument, they're saying we need to make sure that these tools aren't too dangerous. Translation, too dangerous for you. Spoiler alert, those safety mechanisms will not be in the AI models that people like Elon, Sam Altman, Dario Amodei, and the highest levels of the intelligence apparatus have access to. They will have unfettered models that can do anything. But idiots, dumbasses like you and I will not have access to those unfettered models. They'll have safety restrictions because we're too dumb to control our own impulses, and we can't be trusted with this great power that is only for the Epstein class, people that have ascended, that no longer need to work for a living. This also contradicts their statement about democratization. How is that fair if Sam Altman has a model that can do anything, that can design pathogens, and I don't? That's not democratic at all. That's classist. That's a discrimination against me. Why can't my model make pathogens if his model can make pathogens? That would be democratic. So you see that the internal logic starts to fall apart here. They call it resilience, but they want you weak. They want you weak. Finally, they want you rigid. They want you frozen with fear. But instead of that, they say that they want adaptability for you as their final point. And they elaborate. We continue to believe the only way to meet the challenges of a very unpredictable future is to be prepared to update our positions as we learn more. This is a classic IFC, guys. I've seen this so often. I've worked with so many consultants that came from Bain, that came from McKinsey, that their whole career was making these slide deck presentations for management a-holes. And that's exactly what they have done here. All of these McKinsey a-holes are now at AI companies, apparently, or even embedded into the AI models, perhaps. And that's exactly what point number 5 is the adaptability point. They want you rigid, they want you frozen with fear, but for their part of it, what they want to do to be adaptive is they want to say, we can change these at any time. So essentially everything we said before, it's all subject to change. That's a hedge against them being wrong about anything. So that way, when I have this video calling them out, this won't do much. But as the opinions get out there, as people start to see the internal logic falling apart in these principles, people start talking about it and that idea starts to bubble up and they start to face some backlash and pressure over this. Maybe somebody throws another Molotov cocktail at Sam Altman's 10th mansion that he doesn't even live in. Who knows? But once the pressure is applied to a certain point, they will update these terms and say, we said that we were going to be adaptable, and look, we're adapting and we're just changing everything. So this is a hedge against anything that could possibly happen in the future, which means they don't have an idea. So the through line of this is they do not have an idea. They know that they can touch you. They know that they can touch you, they can push you, they can pull you, they can manipulate you. They can touch you any way they want to, including inappropriate ways. The Epstein class can touch you in inappropriate ways. Sam Altman is part of that Epstein class. This is the latest in their bag of tricks, which you might be asking yourself, why even release this then? Why even do a release? Why even make a document in the first place if they're just going to say it's adaptable or we could just change any of this at any point anyways? And that's exactly what I mentioned earlier. The through line of this is that they need to keep the narrative going that this is better. This is a better way of doing things. They depend on you to believe that. They depend on you and I believing that AI for everything without question, not moderate use of AI, AI for everything without question is the only way forward into the future, that it is inherently good and we must continue to walk down this path. But we are walking down this path. We don't have to continue walking down this path. We do not have to use AI for everything. We can use AI where it's appropriate and abstain from using it in the places where we don't want to delegate those tasks off to AI. That's going to be different for every person. You're going to have to come to terms with that on your own. But we certainly don't need to accept being touched by Sam Altman and being manipulated into thinking that this is a net good thing for society, that they are benefactors of this technology that only want the best for us. And most importantly, that does not mean that they have a plan. Otherwise, point number 5, adaptability, would not be in here. They do not have a plan. They do not have a plan, but they depend on you believing that they have a strong narrative on how AI will be the end-all, be-all of the future, that it will replace God himself. But right now, the clouds are gathering and it looks like it's about to rain.